Welcome back to IMPAKT TV. I'm here with my guest Oxana Timofeeva. Thank you so much for joining us. She's a professor at the Staatsde Center for Philosophy at the European University in St. Petersburg. She's a leading researcher at the Tiumen State University, a member of the artistic collective Что делать, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Что делать?
Leave it at that. Yeah. And she's an author of the book Solar Politics, that's published this year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. How to Love a Homeland, History of Animals. I'm very glad that you could join us today. And maybe the first question is, you were in a panel this morning. Could you briefly tell us what that was about for the people that might have missed it?
The panel was a discussion about the film, the video that was shown yesterday, and it's called Masked Monkey. It is about a tradition that exists in Java Island in Indonesia, to a tradition of like a monkey theater, like a circus where monkeys dressed like humans mimic humans, and the process of training is actually goes with a lot of efforts from the side of those who master the monkey. And it's a very deep film. One has to think a lot about violence and the process of collaborative, like creative effort. What is presented as a collaborative, creative effort between the human being and the monkey is in fact also quite a violent training. So it's when I saw this film, I was a little bit shocked by the picture, the images that contradict the narrative of the film. And the narrative is very smooth. The narrative is about a master who is so well trained to train the monkeys, the animals, and the masters come from the poorest, the lower strata of the society. Also, and the video, in the video we see that a lot of cruelty is performed. And the first reaction is the desire to judge, but this judgment comes from a kind of Westernist view and a humanistic point of view, and one would probably say that this judgment is illegitimate because what we see there is the local tradition, whereas in fact it's not. It's borrowed. It's brought to Indonesia. It appeared in the 19th century, and it actually comes from the Western, from the practices of the colonizers, from the Western experience of the circus, and that's what it's all about. And we had an interesting discussion about mastery, slavery, and freedom. It is a triangle. So there is a master-slave dialectics, which problematizes the very problem of anthropogenesis, of becoming human or becoming inhuman, as the panel was called. And freedom somehow stays behind this master-slave dialectics. That was my idea, that freedom is something else. And to whom really does it belong? To what we call a human being or to what we call the animal? And where exactly is the border? Who really crosses it? A human is crossing the border towards more animality, or the animal.
The opposite of the narrative, right? That through that narrative, it actually supposes that actually these roles are, or both characters are moving towards one another.
Yeah, there is a dialectics, but it's kind of on the one hand there is a dialectics, but it's on the other hand it's also failed dialectics. They do not really become each other. So the monkey, a monkey never really becomes a master, and it doesn't become a human being. But maybe it keeps something of its own monkey being, and this being is a secret, is a mystery. There is something mysterious about that. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
No, that's really interesting, and I was thinking about it also in relation to your research on domestication, on different ideas of how this very anthropocentric worldview informs how we understand non-humans in general, maybe, and animals specifically. And it made me think of your book, The History of Animals, where at some point you state how, in a way, animals are overlooked in history and they might not really have a history according to our human understanding of history, which is strange because, of course, they've been around throughout and they've always had a place in relationship to humans in different ways, in different type of relationships. And then I was wondering if you could elaborate on that aspect of this kind of weird paradox of animals not having a history where, of course, they do, right? So how do you kind of conceptualize that?
I must say that this idea that history is something human is very recent and actually it's quite narrow because if we well, the very concept of history is quite late. It's quite recent, and it was well, is history as we conceive it now is like a totality of events. But now, as we have this concept, we can de-anthropomorphize it and think of history as something which exceeds human and animal and even like all living things that involves the history of Earth, the history of geological strata, the volcano, the mountains, the stones. I have in the place where I live. There are like these huge stones, you know, and the age is like millions of years. They are much older, and sometimes I look at them and I think that they are older than gods, not even humans or animals. There were no animals. There were no even gods on Earth, but those stones. They were there. They are super historical. That's maybe the
part of the human understanding of history.
Yes,
human events, right? Like one preceding the other.
Yes, it's just our understanding of history is outdated, and yeah, the animals is a part of that. Also, animal kingdom. There are species that are so old that. Actually, the species that saw the dinosaurs and that survived the dinosaurs. There are even older species, and sometimes we can have them in our apartments. They appear as small insects, you know, like Germans call them silverfish. I'm not sure if silverfish survive.
Silverfishes.
Silverfishes.
Same thing. The tiny little things that go through your bathroom.
Yeah, silverfish. I'm not sure if they survived the dinosaurs. Maybe they are younger, but still they are old enough. And once I had it in my apartment, I was thinking, oh my God, they are so scary. I should get rid of them. But then I realized that this creature is we must really respect its somehow its history, which is like enormous. We will extinct maybe soon, but the silverfish will be still there.
And how do you see that scientifically? As I mean, history is often considered different understanding of I mean, different science than more the geosciences? Or how do you kind of see how, from kind of a science perspective, how can these different timelines of human history versus geological history and the history of other forms of animals and life forms that we don't really consider, how could we science-wise kind of bring that together? Do you see possibilities of actually expanding that understanding and bringing in other sciences that are there, right? They're just not maybe in the humanities incorporated in the same way historically. How do you kind of see that from the perspective?
I will. I cannot say from the perspective of the natural science, but from the perspectives of the human science, humanities, I would bring forward my science is philosophy, and there was one great philosopher who used Walter Benjamin, who used the term the tradition of the oppressed. When he problematized the concept of history and suggested to take history as a materialist dialectics or dialectical materialism, how you prefer, and he emphasized that all our ideas of history, usually like the official written history, correspond to the narratives of those in power. So those in power, the winners, as he calls them, the winners, they kind of write their version of history, and in this version, what is visible is only the things that they consider meaningful. For instance, like we see Napoleon or other winners, they have these trophies of the great empires and so on. But there are things that are not seen from this perspective, from the perspective of the power, from the position of the power. And these are smaller things, or things that that are not human enough, or that do not correspond to this masculine and colonial image of humanity, or in general, like politics. And this can be first we women, then whatever else, animality and plants. You know, there is this term plant blindness. For instance, we do not see plants, we do not notice how many plants are around, and they are living beings, and sometimes they are quite like old. There can be an individual living being, which is like a tree, which is like 300 years old.
And yet we don't consider it as an agent in the
we
same
don't,
way
yeah,
as a
we don't.
comparatively short-lived person, right?
Yes, we can cut.
Different understanding.
We can just cut his life, and without even being aware that that this person actually stays here for ages, and that's how the history should be rewritten in this from this perspective of a kind of justice. So there must be another tradition. Another tradition must be invented, which is the tradition of the oppressed. I'm just Benjamin was thinking about the poor, the people that were struggling for liberation. For instance, the slaves and the proletarians. But we must also think about the non-human part of the globe. So other beings that. That can be considered as like comrades and agents.
Yeah, because that was something that I was wondering about. I read that you somewhere mentioned this concept of solidarity with animals specifically, but also other non-human life forms. And I was thinking about this because in a way it makes so much sense, but at the same time it seems also like a kind of big stretch to have a solidarity with a life form that is very different, very hard to understand from maybe a rational perspective, or has a very different way of being in the world. So I was wondering, do you see this solidarity as necessary way to actually have a paradigm shift in how we understand our environment and our place as people in the world. But also, is it realistic in terms of, can we achieve that as people? Can we actually understand other life forms well enough to be able to take them into account if we can't give them agency in the way that we can give other humans, basically?
Right. Thank you for this question. It's very important, and because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, solidarity, blah blah blah," and you can express your solidarity with whomever, but nobody knows, do you really feel it or not? However, for me, this is a crucial concept, and this otherness, which you mentioned, is the crucial point of this crucial concept, and the key to understand it is in the fact that a human being is also different with regards to herself.
Yeah.
So
of course, there's no singular human in that sense,
there is
right?
there is no singular human. I never coincide with myself. I'm also in this kind of discrepancy and non-coincidence, and there are these shifts and falling into the otherness at every step of the existence of a human and also non-human beings, because nothing coincides with itself, actually. Even the dead corpses, they are in a constant moving, as far as they decompose and become other multiple bodies. But also a living individual is in contradiction to herself. Basically, it is this self-alteration which is the basis of solidarity, the truth of which is precisely in the fact that you put yourself on the place of a different thing, not necessarily a different person, because you have a certain similarity. You have something alien. You have something you have this the alienness, this difference in yourself. Let's say there is a rock or there is a stone. This one, maybe this big stone, which is like millions years old, and you have something stony in yourself. So you have something of this stone. What exactly you are having? For instance, a stone can be crushed by, I don't know, whatever industry. The industry is coming there and they crush the stones in order to make like a smaller stones to put it on the ground, or to use it somehow. And you also can be crushed by a certain
and also
industry.
Exploited, right? In similar systems of extracting value out of life forms in general. Exactly,
this is the point. So you are extracted in the same way as the oil is extracted and exploited in the same way for the production of value. And this is precisely the grounds for solidarity with the non-human, which gives us a certain, which gives us something of this other. Say, if I have this solidarity with the oil, crude oil, petroleum, I also can imagine that in my ways of resistance can be something of a fuel, can be something explosive, something, the non-human aspects of resistance as well as this is what solidarity brings us. That was the point of my book, Solar Politics.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think that opens up other ways of understanding this resemblance, which sadly I think comes back to shared suffering in different ways. But that might actually bring it together or tie different species together in a way that otherwise, rationally or through different kind of understandings of the world, might be appear very, very different.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. I want to thank you so much for our conversation today. It was really lovely, and thank you for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And then we're going to head back to the studio downstairs for the performance of Demystification, titled God Mode Episode 1. Thanks for tuning in.